Hello and welcome to GFTL. Today I have with me two wonderful blokes from Arcen Games, and they are here to talk about a myriad of things, and their new game, A Valley Without Wind, which is currently in public beta. Thanks for being here, guys. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
I'm Chris Park. I'm the founder and owner of Arcen Games, and we developed AI Warfleet Command and then Tidalis, and now we're working on A Valley Without Wind.
And I'm Erik Johnson. I'm the PR and marketing guy for Arcen Games. I also do a bunch of different development tasks for them as well. I pretty much am the jack of all trades at this point, and we're currently. I'm working specifically on A Valley Without Wind. I also do marketing and PR for all three of our games.
Great, it's lovely to have you with me. Very excited.
Thank you. Excellent. Well, it's good to be here. So,
I just wanted to start off by asking you what a normal day in your office is like.
Well, we all work out of our home offices, so it really varies by person. So, the funny thing is that actually the only ones of us that have ever met in person are myself and Pablo Vega, the composer. So, the rest of us have spoken on Skype, on the phone, on email, IM, all that sort of thing, to coordinate and get our work all done together. But we're kind of all off on our own to do our own thing, and it's all about the results. We all get our stuff done and work all sorts of weird hours. So it really varies.
We want to meet each other. It's a healthy goal for us.
Yeah.
To want to come together at some point in time. But actually, Chris and I live about 3,000 miles away from each other. He's in North Carolina, and I'm over in Los Angeles. So we're pretty far apart.
Yeah, Phil is another 3,000 miles from me north too. Or thereabouts, I guess. He's in Montreal, so he's not even in the same country up there in Canada. And when he said it was a 12-hour drive for him down to New York, I was like, "Holy kidding! Are you kidding me? That's a 12-hour drive north for me. I mean, that's it's a long distance." So.
Yeah, I guess that's the wonder of the internet, though. You don't have to be in the same room.
Yeah, exactly. And it really works out well because, it's all about finding the right people, and the right people are not necessarily all going to be in the same physical location. So.
Yeah, I guess it makes it a lot easier.
Right.
So
as far as home office is concerned, there's like a small bed next to me. We have a TV behind me, and yeah. There's the refrigerator's downstairs, so yeah.
Oh well, that's good. Easy snacks.
Yeah, I know for sure.
So when did you start up Arcen Games? I mean, it's not a huge company, is it?
No, I mean I founded it in March of 2009, and back then it was just me, and then it was. Pablo came on as a part-time composer and doing some sound work and so forth around that same month actually, and so then it was just the two of us for a long time. He was doing music and some sound work, and I was doing everything else. And then we have gradually grown from then. Phil, our artist, one of our artists, came on as a basically full-time contractor also in 2009. And he's working kind of part-time with us on a contract basis for A Valley Without Wind stuff, and I'm doing the main bulk of the art. And then other team members has been throughout 2010 and 2011. Erik's been with us for 10 months, I guess now, and it's just we've been kind of growing gradually as we've been getting more and more well-known, or successful and well-known with our products, and could afford to do so.
Yeah, that's great. You've certainly got yourself a reputation for good AI.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, I played AI War with my friend, and God, it's rock hard. I'm not very good, but no, it's good fun.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing about AI is that it's always, when you're new to a game, most games seem like they have good AI, and that was always the case for me when I would be trying out some other game, and the AI seems good. It's certainly wiping the floor with me, and then I would get better at the game, and 6 months later I'd go, that AI is not actually that good. Now I wipe the floor with it because I know these specific tricks to beat it or whatever, and it could be good if it wouldn't fall for this and that and the other, but since it does, well, and so I think the nice thing is that we've got so many long-term players that still think it's a good AI. I think that's a good test of it.
Yeah. So, as an indie company, what sort of creative freedoms do you get that you don't get at larger production companies?
Well, I mean, you can do whatever you want. If I want to make a game with, you play as the pink pony and you fight, gory sword naked guys or whatever, I can do whatever. There's nobody to say I can't do the worst idea in the world or the most offensive or whatever. So I mean, it's you can do anything. That's not to say that you should. So you have to kind of self-regulate. Really, it comes down to what sort of games would you personally like to play. That's the sort of games that you pretty much probably ought to be making if you're going to be an indie, and you're able to do that versus there's a lot more constraints on what the marketing or the execs or whoever would be giving you if you're working AAA.
Right. I mean, deadlines are so, like you said, self-imposed. We're kind of looking to our deadlines are going to, and bottom lines are for quality of product, not a time to get the product out, or it needs to be in these people's hands at this point and stuff. We never say that. We just work till we feel the product is at the point of quality it needs to be, which I think a lot of indies subscribe to, which I think is a great thing.
Yeah,
right.
I've seen that in a lot of people. For instance, I've seen the guys from the Indie Stone. Do you know them?
Yes.
They do Project Zomboid.
Not personally, but yeah, Zomboid, of course.
Yeah, and they've been going on about how they want to do frequent updates, but then they always think of something else, and it pushes back the day when they want to release the next update. But
another thing I'd say is go ahead, Chris. Okay, another thing I would say is sort of autonomy. If you're on a team, at least, I mean, obviously there's a lot of solo developers out there, but with a team of an indie team, you actually work sort of just autonomous of one another. And Chris is definitely my boss, but he is not like any boss I've ever had before, in the sense that I can come to him at any time and talk to him on a level playing field, I guess, as far as he's going to listen to me and he's going to take in everything I have to say. And he does that for everyone, so I'm not special. I mean, he does that with everybody and our customers and all that and stuff. But he's just a really fantastic boss, in the sense that I've never felt below him. There's no hierarchy at Arcen Games. We talk on the same level. We all have our jobs and we do them, and that's what really I think motivates the team in a lot of ways. Is that there's a trust in what you're doing and what you're doing for your job for the greater whole of the group. And
there's a nice feedback loop there as well with criticism and so forth needs to flow all the different ways. So if there's something that I'm doing that's not working, then people mention it, or vice versa. And that's the nature of being experimental with what you're doing. You try all these different things with all aspects of the product, the business, etc. And will it work? Will it work out like it sounds good on paper? Will it work out in practice? Or maybe it doesn't even really sound good on paper to everybody. There's got to be multiple feedback on everything that happens to really get something that's even polished enough that we want to push it out as a beta. And then of course we go through that feedback loop with the players as well. Once they've got it in their hands, then we actually go to a release. And that works really well for us, because we do try and push the envelope in directions that, a lot of companies aren't. You're just doing things that aren't in the common mold. And when you do that, there's a lot of, you can't just walk the exact right path the first time. You have to kind of meander on a few little side paths. See, does that seem like a good idea? Let's try that out. Oh no, that's not a good idea. Well, this seems like a better idea. Oh, that's cool. Why has nobody ever done that before? Well, nobody ever tried it. No, that actually works. So you wind up with this non-linear path to development as well, and that's where the autonomy really comes in as well. It's everybody's got to be free to experiment and make some mistakes that they and we as a team learn from, and it's not oh, you made a mistake. It's cool for trying that didn't work out, but what about this, and that's how we kind of get things done.
Yeah, cool. 'Cause a lot of larger companies like EA and Ubisoft use linear development, and do you think that this have you ever worked at large companies or bigger producers?
I've never worked at one of the I specifically avoided working in the AAA industry. I worked in the business business software field for 9 years before founding my own company, and so we certainly had plenty of very large company clients. So I'm no stranger to the requirements document and all that whole process with business software, which is even more, in a lot of respects, rigid in the AAA games industry. And there's always revisions. When it was business software, you try and document all the requirements. You talk to all the various employees at the customer or whatever. They all have their input. You write up what's going to happen. You do it. You give it to them, and inevitably, everybody wants changes. And with a game, that's a shorter turnaround time, a few months, and it's a specific set group of people. These are business customers. Even if it's a 400-person company, there's only 20-some people or whatever that specifically need this feature. So you can deal with that and you can revise. And with a game, if you've got millions of customers, your AAA company, you're releasing the next giant game, you start with some fixed idea and you go through it, and you don't consult, obviously, the millions of customers, and then you release it to them, and they all want changes. Well, you're done. Sorry. So, I mean, it's definitely a very inflexible way of doing it, so you really have to mitigate the risk to begin with. And, I can see very much why that process happens. If you're going to invest, $20 million or more into doing some idea, it better be a darn good idea that people aren't going to ask for 1,000 changes when it comes out, because, that's, it had better work the first time. We don't have those constraints because it can not work the first time. We can talk to people, we can iterate, and then they can go, oh my goodness, that's awesome the second time. And, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. From my side, I worked for a marketing agency for like a year and a half before I came on. Well, a couple years before I came on with Arcen, and so I do relate to that sort of bottom line kind of mantra that doesn't necessarily deal with the quality of what you're doing, but just getting it done. And so that there is like some stark differences there. I also had a friend, my roommate actually, he has done a lot of QA for several major developer publishers, and I wouldn't even want to get in with that muck at all, given the fact that it's just sort of a turnover thing where you just get fired and rehired every 3 months or off, up and down, and they don't give a crap about you at all. And the other thing about that with the linear development is that it doesn't really allow you to sorry about that, phone in the background, but what the linear development doesn't allow you to do is it doesn't allow you to explore your game's mechanics fully necessarily, because you're putting yourself on a timetable. And like you said, with the early, when we were talking earlier about how we now have players that can test and give us feedback, and what that allows us to do is that it allows us to really take a look at what we're doing with our mechanics and really fine tune them to a certain point, and maybe even go to directions that we never even thought about before with it. And that's just not really done on that AAA level because they're just, we have the next game to move on to. There's no such thing necessarily as post-launch support in the way that we're trying to bring that to the table.
Yeah, you said things about the community wanting things and feedback, and how useful has your community been, and how have you built it up?
Amazingly. I mean, I'm so amazing. Yeah.
Instrumental. Yeah, I mean, it's just been absolutely instrumental because if you look at AI World 1.0, for instance, I mean, people liked it, but it was niche. I mean, that was really niche, and it was rough compared to what it is now. I thought I'd polished it up really well, and I'd had, a dozen, beta testers and all this sort of stuff. I'd been working on that for 7-ish months, I guess, by the time that I released it at 1.0, and it sold okay, for a small, very niche indie game. And then throughout the 1.0 to 2.0, that was summer of 2009, was really developing that out with player feedback, and that's really when things started. The community was there. They started giving advice and thoughts, and this would be better, and hey, what if you added this feature and this, that, and the other ideas on balance, and that's when it really suddenly hit another level. That's when we started getting all of a sudden these really great reviews, and the sales started really going up, and then we got on Steam after that summer, and so forth and so on. None of that would have really happened without that extra feedback loop. AI World 2.0 was just such a much better game than 1.0 was. Now we're on 5.0, and it's just night and day. And we're already seeing that with Valve Without Wind. 2 weeks ago, we went into public beta after having had a private alpha for a couple of weeks before that, and now it's already night and day what it was and what it is, and it's still growing. So I mean that it's just absolutely core to how we do business.
Yeah, I've seen your forums, and there are a lot of very active people, positive comments and criticism, and it looks good.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay, I was just gonna say it's the speed of everything here the last couple weeks that is just sort of mind blowing, Chris. I mean, the way we were able to kind of sort of fast track everything with now having hundreds of people playing the game instead of just a couple dozen or just a couple people in general when we started out in the last few months and stuff. It just accelerates things in a lot of ways to do that, to have that going for us, as well as the fact that it takes a team of 5 or 6 and moves it to about, like I said, the hundreds of people that are involved, as long as they're willing to let us know what they think about the game or what they see. I mean, a lot of our forum posters, Chris will tell you, take pride and they feel like they've made, and they have made, significant contributions to our titles, and that's a big deal for us as a community to feel that way on both sides.
You see that for a lot of indie companies. The community feels good about being part of the development.
Yes, definitely.
Exactly.
You also get a lot of people shouting things into the ether, but
Yeah, and there's a lot of there's a number of people that play whatever game it is that we're most actively developing at the time almost as a metagame. They play it and they enjoy the game for what it is, but what they enjoy even more is seeing how they can help improve it, through suggestions, or I found this bug, or whatever it is that they're doing. And I've had dozens of players who've commented on that. I love playing the game. I love even more being part of that cycle with it, and it's really kind of funny to see how that. I mean, and that would have been me, 10 years ago, if I had been on the indie development really wasn't around in the same way 10 years ago. But if it had been, I totally would have been one of those guys in the forums, so of some other developer. So.
Yeah, and like you said, some people come in and throw a fit with us, and obviously we did take some. We've taken our flack for going the open development road, showing off footage weeks into development for A Valley Without Wind was a conscious decision by us, and there were pros and cons to that certainly, but we always feel that with open development, the positives always have outweighed the negatives, because the negatives feel so superficial, and the positives have been so just deep and helpful for us as a team. And most of those people who kind of are throwing a fit and stuff, if they come to our forums and they kind of realize who we are, we've had some people come in and just throw fits, and we've kind of just answered back to them, as long as they have some kind of point to what they're saying, or they're not just screaming at us. We're definitely open to talking to anybody and working out any situation. And so we've actually gained a lot of our reputation, like you mentioned, off of those kinds of situations where people come in screaming mad about something that maybe their key didn't work for whatever reason, maybe it was or something like that, and it's like, no big deal, here's another key and stuff, and they're blown away by the fact that someone would just be on the other side of that form to let them know that everything's okay and such, because I guess they've been screwed so badly elsewhere.
Yeah,
so,
I guess they're not used to that. Normally,
which is
larger
AAA country. That's not a good thing to be in. I think as a business sense in 2011 especially. I think customer service really needs to be improved on all fronts. I mean, let alone just game development and indie development.
Yeah, it's all about context. You run into people that they come to just vent and tell you, just basically throw a email there or whatever that is a forum post that's like blah 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 blah, here's my grievances about whatever, and then they get a response and they're just like, oh my god, I love that, that's amazing. And then some of the early on with AI were some of the biggest long-term fans that came out of some angry email that they originally sent. And it's like, oh really, you feel that way? Well, we can do something about that, thanks for telling me. And they're just like, what? And, we don't really get too many of those anymore. Usually with like a Valley Without Wind, if it's, it's usually about context there too, where with the early development videos, for instance, we had an existing fan base that was clamoring to see anything about what we were doing, and they found it interesting to follow along and kind of see how the hot dog is made, basically. And that's a process with a lot of guts, basically. If there's sawhorses all over, it's not a clean process to make a game, you know what I mean? But what you see from, like, say, the AAA previews or whatever are cleaned up screenshots or very, very isolated bits of video or gameplay or whatever that get shown off, so it looks like a cleaner process than it really does if you are actively inside one of those companies. And we're just like, we'll show the whole guts of the whole thing the whole way through. And for the fan base that we already had, that made perfect sense. They loved it. They gave a lot of feedback all the way through. We got a lot of improvements based on what people said on the videos, even way months and months back. And then you get people that have no context. They come to this video and they see something that's really early alpha, this would be back in February or whatever, and they're like, oh my god, it's like ski free, and you're just wandering around in the woods. Where on earth is the gameplay? And it's like, well, yeah, you're wandering around in the woods. That's the state of the game at this point, because we're getting to the point where you can wander around in the woods and this and that, and the world building is there, and this is what we're showing off. But yeah, it's not a game yet. It's a wandering around in the woods simulator at this point. And so you wind up with any stage of development, if it's not a 100% complete finished game, with people going who don't understand, you don't want to understand what point the game is at. They're going, well, where is X? And it's like, well, that's coming, but we're talking about where it is right now. I mean, so.
Yeah, I played the initial public beta release, and I have to say, when I did play it, I thought, well, I mean, it looks good. I mean, I can see the mechanics there. There are spells. It looks cool, but the sparseness between, like, the cool bits, like I found the boss towers and that sort of stuff. I love that, but then there were the quiet bits in between, and I'm like, well, I guess I just have to remember that this is the first beta release, and I guess it's a lot easier to have 100 people finding bugs than 5.
That's
right. Absolutely. And everybody has different things they find. You put 600 people on a problem, and you get things that you would not find with if you have 5 people on it or whatever, you know, and it's really a way of refining. And to some extent, with the sparseness and all that, that's been something that we've been addressing over the last couple of weeks. And some of that just comes from, oh, well, you know, we didn't have enough assets to fill it all in yet, but that's coming type thing. And then other parts of it come with, well, what is the appropriate density to where it's fun, you know? And that's something that's a hard question to answer by one person, because it's like, well, do I feel this way because I've been playtesting this for 10 hours, or is this how I would actually feel if I'm, you know, coming to this fresh, you know? And some questions you really can't answer as when you're too close to it because you've been working on development. And so to some extent, you know, the core developers are not going to be able to answer some questions, or they're not going to be confused, for instance, by some aspects of the game because they've been there the whole time. They put it together. They know how it works. They're not going to be confused by something, but you get 600 people, and some people are going to be, you know, confused by this and that thing that others aren't, and you really are able to kind of tighten things up by that. So that's been a good process.
Yeah, I guess that is very closely related to the way you released the public beta. I mean, you had your demo, and then you had the discounted beta price for including updates and the full game. How's that affected the way you work?
I mean, that's it really kind of sets the agenda a lot of times because you know, we get dozens of notes from players every day on either things that are bugs or just features they'd like added. I mean, you know, we get things like, you know, that includes things like new spell ideas or enemy ideas or whatever that aren't defects or whatever else. It's just, hey, here's my idea, and, you know, use it if you like, and those are cool too, you know, because you get a lot of things that we wouldn't have thought of. Like with the AI War expansions, for instance, we're up to like, I don't know, somewhere in the 600 to 800 distinct ships range there, and no way could I have thought of that many ships. I mean, there's a lot of the most recent expansions, 3/4 of the ideas came from fans, you know, and we implemented them, we tuned them, we balanced them. They then helped tune them and balance them afterwards too, because again, that's too much for, you know, 5 people to balance. But you know, that's where, you know, it's almost like having a modding community, but rather than having all these modders working on stuff in isolation at varying levels of quality, and none of it works together very well, you know, and the individual, you know, main players either are forced to go out and find the individual mods and hope that they work together, or they just miss all the mod content. Instead of that, we collect the ideas from the players that, you know, might otherwise be doing mods. We implement them. We make sure there's a consistent level of quality. We implement our own ideas as well, and you wind up with something that, you know, through the central updates, all the players get the benefit of it, and they know it works all together and is all balanced with the central, you know, central ideas in mind of you know, the core ideas of the game versus it being some really big offshoot. And I think that works pretty well. I mean, it does help to set the agenda, because if there's an idea that only we are interested in and players just really don't like, you know, that's, yeah, you know, not something necessarily we would probably explore. That's never actually happened, so it's hard to kind of say that's a speculative thing. But usually the ideas that we have, we've attracted a fan base that likes those same kind of ideas, so it's kind of a self-fulfilling thing that they're going to be into the general ideas of what we're doing. But yeah.
Yeah, they so in A Valley Without Wind, you start off in a small town in the middle of an icy tundra, and I've seen that in those kind of exploration and post-apocalyptic scenarios and themes are quite common in indie titles. Do you have any insight as to like why everyone's kind of drawn to that?
I don't know. I mean, I think that I mean, it's just been something that I've always loved personally. I will say that to some extent, for a good game, if you're trying to have anything that's realistic as well as being an actual good game, you probably need stuff to be kind of busted up. And so take a first-person shooter, for instance. Now think about a building like, say, an airport. So if you're playing the Left 4 Dead level with the airport, it's become mostly linear because there's all this like piles of rubble and things that have collapsed and things that block you. So you take this interesting windy way through the airport, and that is fun and it's a good game. But if you think about if you were playing, if Left 4 Dead wasn't post-apocalyptic and it was just here you are in the airport with guns, you know, buildings are built so that you can quickly get from pretty much wherever in the building to wherever else in the building. So, you know, there's loops all over the place, and there's easy doors. You go in this door, you can come out that door. You know, there's security checkpoints or whatever, maybe, but if you've got guns, that's not really an issue, I presume. And, you know, and there's locked doors on occasion, but if you're able to kick down doors, that's not a problem either. So that makes it so that there's no progression. You know what I mean? If you go into the average office building, you know, you can kind of walk wherever pretty quickly, and elevators are there to help you, and multiple stairwells that all lead you to the same easy access places. They're built to get you where you want to go as quickly and conveniently as possible. That is the opposite of a fun game. I mean, that you want to have a difficult and interesting time getting where it is you want to be going. So I think that lots of rubble and post-apocalyptic stuff lends itself naturally to interesting environments to explore. So that might be part of it, but I think it's just thematically fun too.
I guess I'd never thought of it like that. It actually makes a lot of sense.
I think it's a cultural thing too, though. I mean, if you look at all the different decades in the last century or so, you know, you can really see some themes. I mean, you can see when like the original kinds of Superman and Batman and so forth, where they were just very very light and very powerful superheroes that solve good things, and the bad guys are like, you know, little bank robbers or whatever. You know, those really came out during a certain cultural era, and then they got more campy, and then they got more violent in the 80s, and then they got more gritty and realistic now. And I think that gritty and realistic and post-apocalyptic, for whatever reasons, really kind of speaks to culture now, and it may have something to do with the economy or just the general mood of people. I don't know.
Zombies.
But I mean,
everyone loves zombies.
And zombies.
Yeah.
And so
There are
forth.
so many.
There's so many, and you can trace through each decade just kind of the mood of what's going on with how the fiction is in a lot of respects. You know, when sci-fi was, you know, really dry and really speculative in the 60s and the 70s, and it is just really, I think, goes along with the entertainment kind of mirrors the society to some extent. And I think that for whatever reason, the idea of this kind of broken future speaks to people now.
Yeah, your A Valley Without Wind is definitely a broken future. You've got tile on your map. You've got tiles from all sorts of time periods. I have to say I didn't find any valleys, and I saw a lot of wind. So I'm guessing these aren't what the title refers to. What does this Valley Without Wind represent?
Well, the problem with this world, one of the big problems with this world, is that it's being just ravaged by windstorms. Like you said, you see a lot of wind, and you know, everything's been the whole universe has been just shattered and kind of reformed into this this new shape. It's all messed up, and you know, part of that is that the windstorms are just tearing all over it. And whenever there's a windstorm, you know, the monsters are stronger, visibilities are reduced, etc. And so, you know, a valley without wind, boy, that would be kind of like a safe place, you know. And so it's kind of a thematic thing where
it's a dream,
you know,
is it?
It's the dream. We want this safe world. A valley without wind. That's kind of the goal that we're striving for. But instead, we get all this windstorms and overlords and, you know, monsters everywhere and, you know, yada yada. And so you're, as you play, improving the world and helping out the NPCs and, you know, that sort of thing, and making the world a place that's a little more in keeping with the title. And you're putting up wind shelters that you know, protect from the windstorms and stuff too. So
yeah. Erik, you've been really quiet.
Yeah, Well, I've been listening to Chris. He gets into a role, and I really like listening to him and stuff. But to my credit, I haven't had anything to say. So Chris has really covered everything really well on these points. That is what the Valley Without Wind is far. Well, I mean, did you want to talk about the kind of the title sort of being with Nausicaa and stuff as well, Chris?
Well,
Nausicaa.
I mean, certainly I always liked in Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind, but I mean it's a very loose inspiration. I mean, in the same degree that Crystalis or similar, where I really liked that game. I would say that thematically, Crystalis was probably my biggest inspiration for this one. That was a SNK game from way back in the 80s, and I think Nausicaa was an influence on Crystalis and Final Fantasy and all those 80s Japanese games. But a lot of the
I mentioned it because we get some people coming in all the time going, "Oh, I love Nausicaa. What are you guys trying to do?" and all this stuff, So we always get those kind of feelings and stuff. And yeah, we also do get the same comment that you give all the time, which is, I see lots of wind and no valleys, and we go, but really, and so, yeah.
Yeah. You've got real-time exploration mechanics and a turn-based resource management part of the game. What made you put in both, and how do you intend to develop them together?
Well, part of the thing is that when you're exploring is basically a Metroidvania type of side-scrolling exploration game at core, right? And when you're exploring in real time like that, you want to be doing that activity alone. You don't want to be going, all right, here I am, I'm exploring the castle and I'm fighting these enemies. Let me watch the clock because I need to be sure and be home in time to fend off the bandits that are going to be getting there, or whatever else that's going on. And the next thing, oh golly, I've been out here, adventuring too long. All my settlers have gone hungry, or whatever. In the meantime, so you really want to be able to be kind of in the moment and be playing a Metroidvania game while you're out there. So that really means that the larger scope of the game needs to kind of stay where you left it, And if I want to be, improving my settlement and so forth, I want to be able to go back and work on that for a while, And in that sense, being able to control the pace of basically time with when you end turns and what happens as those progress, as far as what you tell your NPCs to do and all that sort of thing. That really makes sense, and that really fits very well because it stays out of the way of your ability to adventure. But at the same time, when you want to play the larger strategic game, you can play that and really advance that for a while, which works out pretty well.
Yeah, I think certainly accessibility and the different kind of mechanics and genres we're bringing in together with Valley Without Wind is a very important thing. Obviously, some players like Metroidvania style. Some people, are coming from our AIOR crowds and like the the strategy stuff and the 4X kind of stuff a little bit more. So, like Chris said earlier, it's all about with the players now in. We can see how far we want to push the city building, or how far they want us to push it necessarily and stuff, and as well as like the turn-based strategy, and we can kind of grow that with, again, the fine-tuning of the players right there with us to help along and figure out what portions we really want to build up, because it's really unique, I think, to have all those genres together, and it's not necessarily the easiest thing, like you said, to have them all correspond and stuff. So it's definitely something that's a bit of a challenge, I think, but it's really rewarding when it all pays off together and it works well together.
And it's something we're known for. I mean, AI War blends like 4 different strategy subgenres together in a really unusual way, and that was something that I always like to do, because I think if you stick with just one genre or one subgenre, there's been a lot of games in pretty much every genre and pretty much every subgenre. Unless you invent a new subgenre, the best you can do is kind of combine some existing subgenres in novel ways, and you wind up kind of making a subgenre. And when you do that, but I'm not very good at making up subgenres off the cuff, so I like to combine.
Fair enough. Yeah. You've got the turn-based, and you have announced a multiplayer. Is the turn-based going to be in that?
Oh yeah, yep. It's going to be one of those things where you, as the admin of a server, for instance, can set up.
Right.
Yeah, because you're going to set up a server, kind of like an FPS server or whatever else, and there's going to be kind of one default admin, whoever set up the server. They can define other admins, and they can, kind of assign who can do what. So that way, if you want to leave it open, random strangers could come in if you're publicly listing the server, and they can do what you let them, basically, which is probably just kind of the Metroidvania parts. They're not going to be able to go in and just murder all your NPCs or run your strategy part of the game into the ground, or rack up turns for no real reason. You would pretty much want to keep the permissions for the turn-based aspects to people that you trust. And if you've got a small server that's just you and a bunch of friends, then great, make it so that you can all do whatever, and then just coordinate. And it's kind of like AI War in that sense of, all right, are we ready to end the turn? Because this is what's going to happen. It's like, no, wait, I need to do this, I need to do this, and then all right, go. Now let's do it. So you can really have a variety of different scenarios with that in multiplayer.
Cool. Yeah, as I said, you've got your clever AI from AI War and procedural generation. I can see that there's each new game in Valley Without Wind is different, but the AI does that control anything?
Well, AI is a funny sort of thing because it really depends on where you can draw the line of what is AI, and seriously, because a lot of unit behaviors and all that sort of thing. There's a lot of different levels of AI, and AI War is a game that is basically one big AI in a lot of respects. The entire game is the AI. Everything from how the galaxies get created and seeded to how the AI acts at multiple different levels, how the unit acts, and so forth. So that is very much just that game. I mean, it's an appropriately named game, AI War. But A Valley Without Wind, instead of having that as its core, it's very much about the world and the dynamic world building and so forth. So the AI aspects really aren't core to the same extent whatsoever. I would say a Metroidvania style side scroller, there's really only so much that can go into individual enemy AIs. I mean, they have certain behaviors, and those are interesting or not, depending on the difficulty of the enemy in question. And they need to be varied and fun and good opponents that you feel good about overcoming. And I think we're doing a good job with that. But those are more kind of isolated sub-AIs. It's almost like taking individual ship logic from AI War and doing that in A Valley Without Wind, but there's not like some grand opponent as much. Now, that said, our strategy side of the game is really at very, very much in its early stages. I mean, it's probably at like 3% of where we want to go with it, because it's the newer aspect of it. We had to get all the world building and all of the Metroidvania stuff really off the ground before we could even start on the strategic stuff. So even though we've been planning it from the start, it's only been in development for 4 months or something at this point. And there will be overlords that are trying to basically thwart you with their armies and stuff, but that has to develop more, and there'll be interesting AI stuff to do there too. But turn-based AI is really, really different than real-time AI, and frankly, it's a lot easier. So I think there are a lot of turn-based games, strategy games that have really good AI, and there aren't that many real-time ones that do. So there are some, but there aren't a whole lot. So I think we're in a situation with A Valley Without Wind where the AI does what it needs to do, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's a standout feature that's worth writing home about in the same way that it is with AI War.
Cool. Yeah, there's you've talked about what was it, Nassika and Crystalis? I personally
Chrysalis.
Chrysalis, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm only 20, so I don't know like what era those are from, but
both mid and early 80s.
All right, so they're a bit bit beyond me, but I'll definitely have a look at them after this. Your graphic styles, you've got your angular terrain, obviously from procedural generation, and then you've got your kind of painted look for background. Your background items, was this a design or artistic choice?
Well, I mean, it's we try and go for a consistent aesthetic in terms of having the painted look in general, but you're going to wind up with, the ground has to be a certain style in order to in order to be able to move on it, basically.
Well,
in order to be able to procedurally generate it, so you wind up with a bit of a difference there. But I mean, I think that it can fit. It's one of those. This game really doesn't look like any other game out there, for better or for worse. And the opinions vary on whether that is for better or for worse. We've got some people that really, really hate the art style, and we got some people that just absolutely love it, and we've got a lot of people that are kind of in the middle. So, I mean, I think that if you're going to do something really different artistically, that's about the best that you can hope for, honestly. I think that we do what we can to tie it all together with giving that painterly brushstroke look to every component, whether it's angular or whether it's more detailed. So,
yeah, I think one of the problems that I came across with the art style first time I looked at your game was that the fact that the embedded YouTube video was so small, it made the kind of CG looking characters and the background, it made it look all pixely and low quality.
Yeah, it was our duty. Yeah, it was our job and our endless sort of task every time we released a new YouTube video or a new trailer or footage or whatever, to just implore and plead with people to watch it at 1080 if possible, and stuff, to even get close. And 1080, as was pointed out, doesn't even actually get the full look of the game.
It's a lot better.
It's much
beautiful.
closer than the smaller versions, obviously, on YouTube. But obviously we were wrestling with a lot of people, and that was one of the big reasons we were so happy to get the game finally into people's hands this last few weeks. Is just to finally let them see and play for themselves, as opposed to just watching these these compressed videos of it.
And that's been really positive too, because we've had a number of people that have been like, I was really iffy off the videos, but I really like how it looks when I see it in person or whatever. And
that's exactly what I did.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's tricky, because this is another thing, I guess, that kind of comes back to risk. If you're a game developer, let's say, and you want to put out a game, are you going to make sure that whatever you do must look good in screenshots and really compressed videos? Or are you going to do something that is different and unique and looks really good when you actually play it? And I went for the latter, but there's certainly some negative aspects to that, in that you might turn away some people that just see the videos. And one of the things we've been doing to kind of combat that is, instead of showing screenshots that are little thumbnails of them and then they're all scaled down, we're cropping them down instead of scaling them down, so that way all that detail remains and it still fits on your screen. We're saying, look, this is what it looks like. There's only part of the screen. If you want to go over to the thumbnails page, you can see the whole thing. We're not hiding anything, but look, all you would have seen was this stupid compressed version of it that even the PNG or whatever would not have looked right, because your browser scaled it down so far that it looks terrible. This is what it looks like when you see just part of the screen and it's at full res and you get all the details. And I think that has helped too, because the default is to just take the thumbnails, right? And not all games are going to show real well in thumbnails when they're dependent on small detail. Yeah,
it definitely looks so much better when you either watch it in 1080p or just have the game. It's a marked difference. And I particularly like the music as well. It's got that kind of chiptunes feel, you know, obviously 80s 80s era games. I was going to ask if are there any more games that you'd like to name that you had any influences from?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of games. I mean, for a lot of the side-scrolling stuff, I mean, obviously most of the Metroid and Castlevania games were an influence, and I also was one of the few fans of Zelda 2 on the original Nintendo. Seems like that's the Zelda that a lot of people love to hate, and there's a lot of things I hate about it too, honestly. But I kind of looked past the flaws, and there were parts that were really cool and that haven't been delivered on since. So I like to take those kind of cool parts that they never really fleshed out and do something with them. And there's I really like there's a wide variety of games. Only a lot of the 1989's Demon Stalkers is a PC game, not well known, but it's a kind of dungeon crawler type thing. It was top down, but when it comes to adventure games, it's one of the kind of prototypical ones for me, because it was one that really got me started with level design and thinking about game design in general. And there's a lot of more modern ones too, but I'd love to name Minecraft as an inspiration, but at the same time, it was kind of an inspiration of let's not be too similar to Minecraft, because I love Minecraft. It's so much fun.
But yeah, I've put up videos of me building things just because I love it so much. It's like,
oh yeah, I mean,
things
it's so
I build
great.
are rubbish.
it's a great thing, and it's kind of like, well, do we want to include the ability to build structures or whatever? And it's like, well, then you kind of become Terraria again, and it's like, well, we really want to not step on their toes. We want to do something different. There's no reason for us to rebuild Terraria or Minecraft, and so they've been somewhat an inspiration on things of what we are specifically not going to include because there's such a big focus with them.
Yeah, not only that, but we feel we have our own strengths to work off of. I mean, we've come up with some great concepts that we just feel, we fit into the same genre, which I think is great because it's a really budding genre as far as I'm concerned over the last, a couple of years is this, massive exploration, whether it be 3D or 2D. But we feel like we have a lot of just, core ideas that are totally different than those games.
Right.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I said there's exploration all over the place. Oh dear, someone's burning down the kitchen.
I hope that's not real. I mean, I hope it's not really bad. I don't mean to laugh like that.
It won't be. My friend burns. He loves bacon and he burns it all the time. Yeah. What was I going to say?
We were talking about the exploration aspects of kind of the genre that Minecraft has sort of brought about as far as, well, not it wasn't the first, but it was the one that popularized it, I guess.
Yeah.
The wide open exploration and all that stuff. Although, like we said, Minecraft is a more of a building experience, where you're actually doing that. Whereas we want to deliver, although they're going with an adventure experience finally as well. But we've always had that kind of like that adventure idea in mind from the get-go with Valley Without Wind. That was always the sort of the ground floor for it.
Yeah, and Minecraft has done a lot for the indie community. I mean, it's popularized going out and looking for things that you can go and see, like Your Game or the Indie Stone or can't think of another one. Sorry, but yeah, there's a lot of smaller companies out there with big ideas for their games, and I mean, with the alpha prices schemes, that opens a lot of things to a lot of people.
Right, I think it's really inspirational. Obviously, what just to see, hey, one man can go this far, with an idea and with a game. I see Notch every few months now because we end up at the same conventions all the time. I also do journalism games journalism as well. So I'm kind of pulling double duty a lot of times. And I was up and down the West Coast this year, all the different conventions and stuff, and he was there at most of them. And it's just life is irrevocably changed for Notch, I feel. Not that I knew his life before, but I'm just guessing it's not like it is now. And it's and that is just surrounded by people who have such a love for his game that he doesn't know whether or not they're actually realistic to him, or whatever the case. And he's always just surrounded by just several dozen people, whether it be his workers or his employees or just undying fans who are just surrounding him. Life is totally different for him now, and I feel I'm not saying that I feel bad for a millionaire or anything like that, but I mean just for what life has likely irrevocably changed for him because of how popular Minecraft has become. But like I said, as far as the just sort of what if one developer with a good idea can go that far, I can come up with a great idea too. That's just really inspirational, I think, to hobbyist devs and indie developers and things like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is because obviously Notch is very influential now and very rich, and he started off as one man and now he has a huge company. Do you think that there's a point where you kind of cross the line between being indie and then obviously success brings most of it to you, but is there a point where you stop being independent and move on to larger things?
If you saw today, I don't know if you guys saw the news today, but if you saw in Twisted Pixel's situation with the Gunstringer and Explosion Man guys, they were purchased by Microsoft. So for them, it was when they got purchased by Microsoft is when that occurred. But I just think the indie line has always been extremely blurry. I think if you talk to people who are passionate about what indie games are or what they mean in as far as what their corner is in gaming development or in the gaming community and all that, you'll get 1,000 different answers from 1,000 different people. But so to that point, I don't think that there's necessarily one round answer for that, but there probably are checkpoints, like where you go, whoa, we're getting to a certain point here. One of the things that I'm it would be a happy worry, obviously, because the sales would be so high. But if we got such a high community, or so many people in our community that we don't have enough manpower to answer all of the questions or all the comments or whatever, that's just like a irrational concern of mine. If we got if the game went off really sells, and lo and behold, last month Chris pulls in a great new employee for us named Josh, who's our community manager, and it just obviously that calms you down a little bit, because you go, oh well, if we're selling really well, we can just get more community managers and they can handle. We really that's the big thing with us is that I feel like that would be a big indicator of someone who's not indie anymore. And not saying that all indie developers do this in the first place, but that if you don't communicate with your community in the same level that you did at when you were quote small or whatever, then I think that you've lost something there. And like I said, easier said than done. Notch has 1 million people giving him 1 million different suggestions for Minecraft, and I'm sure 99% of them are totally crap, like not good at all. So like I said, it's easier said than done when you get to that point where there's so many people knocking down the door. But I not just now, what his company's now a publisher of indie games and stuff. So are they still independent? Wholly, but are they a struggling entity of a couple of people working in a online situation, or in bedrooms or basements? No, like they're very much set up now and stuff. So it's a really big term, I think, to define as far as just anything. Indie gaming is just a very tough thing to say it's this. So
Supergiant Games, who had a lot of success with and a lot of critical acclaim for their Bastion game. I mean, I played that and I loved it. It was so good.
Yeah, Bastion's fantastic.
Yeah, a lot of procedural narration, which blew me away. I wasn't expecting that. But I mean, they got published by a big publisher, Warner Brothers Games. So I don't know whether that probably doesn't cross the line. But
yeah, well, to me, it's the identification method. You take a look. I mean, to me, indie or not really doesn't matter. It's is it the Bastion? You can tell it's handcrafted. There's a ton of love, a ton of passion put into it. You know that. You know what I'm saying? Like we were at IndieCade this past weekend, and Chris Hecker, the Spy Party developer, was kind of getting.
Yeah, I like that.
Right.
I've seen that.
He was getting kind of hounded because he was saying that Braid, Jonathan Blow's Braid had more depth to it than Portal, and people were some couple of big Portal fans in there. This was an open panel, an open discussion and stuff, and so they were going back and forth, and Chris was kind of sort of insisting that Braid has sort of more depth in the puzzle and basically in their mechanic, the time kind of mechanic in Braid, different than Portal's mechanic, basically because and everybody kept hounding him, and it got to the point where he goes, look, I don't know what else to say. One person gave a crap about exploring the mechanic and the other didn't about Braid and Portal. Is that one person, Jonathan Blow in his game, he explored his mechanic to the fullest. He looked everywhere. He looked for what was fun. He found out what wasn't fun and took it out, and that's what the game was. Whereas Portal was Chris Hecker's discussion is that it didn't explore the mechanic as fully as it could have. It just got it to a certain point and then released it. So
no, I would be inclined to agree with him. I mean, Braid, there's a lot to do.
That's a big difference, I think, between how I view game development. What's the bottom line for you? Is the bottom line to explore your mechanic fully and then to come up with this really great concept, unique concept, and come out with it, or is it to fit in with a genre, get it out as soon as possible, and sell. That to me, that's the difference. It's not mainstream and indie. It's those two things, and that's not necessarily, and that's not the only two ways you can develop a game either. So it's just really, it's a totally vague conversation that you and I probably could have for days, Josh. So.
Okay, I think I might have taken up quite a lot of your time already, but I'd just like you to pick out a few indie games that you've seen on the internet or at Oh yeah, I was going to ask you first. Are you going to Minecon? Because you said you were.
Right now, we're in discussion to exhibit with them. We haven't gotten 100% confirmation, although it seems like right now everything is rolling along and going well. I just don't want to say 100% yes yet until they confirm it with us, but we feel that we're going to be there and we're going to be a presence and showing off a Valley Without Wind and all that. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, as I was saying, if you could name a few indie titles that you really think are going to do well or may not do well, but you love what they're doing and how they're developing it and simple mechanics of the game, could name a few titles there.
Well, I'll be better at this than Chris probably because he's so busy developing, programming all the time and stuff. I don't know how much he gets to play. But Chris, do you have any kind of in development in mind that you're looking at right now?
Well, I mean, the most recent one that I played, it's already been out for quite a while, which is Limbo, and I really enjoyed, which is no surprise, everybody really enjoyed that one. I really like, I keep up with Cliff Harris, and I really like the way that Gratuitous Tank Battles is looking to shape up. I think that's a really neat take on tower defense that again is exploring an idea to the fullest. He developed a certain idea with Gratuitous Space Battles, and he explored that pretty fully as it was, but then taking it to the terrestrial, ground-based combat, that really takes it in another direction where he can explore it in new ways that really weren't possible to explore in Gratuitous Space Battle. So I think that's a really cool thing. I'm excited to see what he's going to do there. And I play a lot of iPhone games as well. and have been enjoying that. I really like what Kairosoft, which I guess they're indie, I don't really know, but I really like what they've been doing with their simulation games, because they have a core idea of basically a simulation of a business usually, and they did the game dev story to start out with, and then they've got all these other entries in their series that are all exploring different ways of kind of simulating a business and in a fun and accessible way that a lot of people really enjoy. And I think that's really neat what they've been experimenting with. I think that my favorite is definitely the Mega Mall story of all ones, because I have no attachment to malls, but they really nailed the mechanics in that one, and so that was the one that grabbed me most mechanically, despite not having a connection with the theme.
Eric?
Yeah, I've got several. Obviously, being on the journal side, and like I said, I just attended an event this past weekend that was basically all indie games, and was big on that. Fez won the basically, I think, game of show, best in show for that event, and I think Fez is going to do fantastic. People have just been waiting for that game. It continues to get delayed, just to people's chagrin. But once it does come out, I think early next year, I think that's going to be have like a braid-like effect. Although I think it'll be across all the platforms at the same time. So instead of it just coming out on the 360, it'll be PC and all that other stuff as well, which I think will drum up a lot of custom for it at the same time. Anti-Chamber, if you've heard of it, or Anti-Chamber by Alexander Bruce.
I haven't heard of that one.
Look it up. It's although you can look it up and you can read all about it. It's nothing like you've ever experienced before, and you don't know anything really about it until you play it. So it's a really it's a demo. It's a very demo-ish game. You have to be there and play it to really enjoy it, and it's really like a first-time experience that really makes it interesting. And then the other game that's kind of like that is Terry Kavanagh's new game, At a Distance. He's the guy who did VVV.
Right.
And it's At a Distance is a completely different game. He's totally experimental as well. So that looks really cool. Proteus, if you've heard of that, by Ed Key. It was on display at Indiecade this weekend. It won Best Sound. Exploration with sort of the procedural music as you explore. Totally ambient exploration. It's great. It was really fun. And then so some of the more sort of popular titles that I think are really going to take off indie-wise: Skulls of the Shogun by Hana Temple Studios. I think that's going to be an Xbox Live Arcade exclusive at first. I got a chance to play the multiplayer, and it was really fun. It reminded me of kind of a chess and Frozen Synapse kind of fun, kind of combined and stuff.
All right.
But streamlined, much easier, and all that. And you get archers and infantry and cavalry, and you get your general, and you go at each other, and whoever's last general is standing, or whoever's general standing last wins the game, and so that's really fun. And then, so sorry, I got two more, and then I'll be done. There's so many. For the iOS, I really like Hardlines. It's out right now. It's by Spilt Milk Studios, and if you haven't heard of it, it's kind of like Snake meets Geometry Wars, in the sense that they took sort of a Snake mechanic, and they just made all these different modes and stuff to kind of play with. It's like you're a line versus all these other lines that are talking shit to you, basically. And it's just a brilliant small game. It was actually like a free app the other day, but it's there's a lot of love into it, and for an iPhone experience, it's fantastic. And then the last one I just wrote about is Mari O, well, Mari Zero, I guess, which is the combination game that Stab Yourself Development, I don't know why it's Stab Yourself, but that's not a very good name, is working on, which is a combination of basically putting Portal mechanics and the Portal spirit into the original Super Mario Brothers. So just think of and Chris, this will be right up your alley, given your love of fan games and stuff. But it's these guys are are making this polished as far as it looks so far. It is polished as far as, and it has Portal 1 and Portal 2 mechanics in it, lasers, all portals and stuff, and it's completely within the original NES Mushroom Kingdom. So and they're basically building it from the ground up. It looks, like I said, it just looks like a gamer's wet dream, and it's just totally, everybody's just going nuts about it and saying, take my money, and they're like, we're working on it and stuff. But I mean, it looks really, really just fun, and that's another thing about indie games is people get into some of the artistic values of it and stuff, but I'm looking for fun stuff, so just make sure you're fun and all that. So all those games are to me have a lot of potential and are really, really just a blast to play. So I hope they do well as well.
Great. Yeah.
So thanks for sitting through my list, guys. I appreciate it.
No, that was. I'm gonna have to look up all of those now. So you give me a good load of work.
Yeah. Apologies for that. So.
No, it's fine. Yeah. So to finish up, I've got 3 more questions. So, any hints about unannounced features we will see in Valley Without Wind? Because obviously you take a lot of cues from your community, but anything you've got in mind that you haven't put out yet?
That's always kind of tricky because we tend to be really talking about everything in advance unless we just really don't want to talk about it yet because we don't want to get committed into something. But I will say that we've got some interesting ideas that possibly will add in another genre for the game when we're talking about the strategic level combat, and we've kind of hinted around about that very vaguely, but until we actually implement it, we don't want to give out any details because we got to make sure it works and is fun and doesn't just sound good on paper. So
yeah, I mean you've added in lots of great DLC for AI War. Are there any plans to do that for Valley Without Wind in the future?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think fully we have the same kind of plan, if not maybe even a greater scope for a Valley Without Wind as far as what we can do. I mean, obviously AI War's scope was also so very huge, but they definitely, and they're very different games, but that's kind of how we develop is that post-launch sort of feel. So we definitely have expansions in mind, but we also are just going to have a ton of free content going until the community really doesn't support it anymore. Is how we feel like it should go. We really feel like the game should have all the support and all the new content in the world basically until that point.
Yeah, because you're still supporting AI War, aren't you?
Yes, absolutely.
And we got another expansion plan, and we'll go through another free DLC. Whenever we do an expansion, we also at the same time develop out all these new features for the base game too. So that way, even if you don't want to buy another paid expansion or whatever, you still wind up getting a bunch of the benefit of that development time, which is something we like to do. So that way, everybody wins no matter what their inclinations are. And with the Valley Without Wind, this is starting out in a much more polished state than AI War did. I mean, for one thing, we're better at it now. We've got a lot more experience, and we're just better at it. For another, we've got a larger team and are able to put more into it, right from the get-go. And for another, we've got, during beta, all this sort of feedback from the community that we didn't start getting until post-launch with AI War. So I'm really feeling like the first release of A Valley Without Wind, the 1.0 release of that, is going to be more equivalent to hopefully AI War 2.0 or even AI War 3.0 in terms of just scope of it, in terms of general polish and all that sort of stuff, where we don't have to go in and reinvent it in terms of the post-launch support, that it's already a solid game. We get to build on top of it instead of building on top of it and reinventing it as we go. And so I think that that's going to really help us in terms of just really being able to just slam the content so that it just grows enormously.
Great. I mean, that sounds good. I'm very excited to see what Valley Without Wind will look like when you put out a proper release.
I think we are too, actually. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, it's been such a. I mean, and apologies in advance if this interview doesn't mean a whole lot in about 6 months. We hope it does. We always try to stay, like we said, towards our immutable goals and stuff. But you know, so many things can end up changing along the way. You know, it's always funny to see. You know, just to look back at development in April and May, and now looking at it and stuff. And I have all the people who have kind of been hanging around me when I've been working on the game just say I just cannot believe how different it looks now comparably to back then, and let alone in the people who have said I can't believe how much different it looks in the last 2 weeks than it did when we released for 2 weeks ago. So it is sort of fun. At the same time, it's sort of just this ever evolving thing, and we have so many sort of ideas and there's so much potential there. It's going to be a blast to kind of see it, and I don't think it's going to be over the next few months. Hopefully it's over the next few years that we see how how this all develops out.
Okay, it's been great talking to you. I've had a lot of fun. I mean, you've been great, interesting. I mean, I've got a lot of insight into the indie developer's mind. It's been great. Would you like to say any final words?
Well, we really appreciate you having us on. Obviously, I mean, it's been awesome talking to you about the game and stuff. We always love talking about it and stuff. We spend a whole lot of time working on it, so it's always good to just bounce thoughts back and forth with someone who's interested.
Yeah, absolutely, and we really appreciate all the support and so forth as well. I mean, we're still very much a small company, and we always are super grateful for all the support we can get. So
yeah, I was going to say, any shout outs that you'd like to say?
Hi, Mom, and as well as probably saying obviously mentioning Keith and Pablo once more, because and Josh, they're so instrumental to A Valley Without Wind. They're the other members of our team at the moment and stuff, and they're absolutely instrumental to where the game has come. Like you said, like you were talking about the music and stuff, that's all Pablo, 100%. I mean, obviously Chris gives his suggestions and what he wants for the music, but Pablo is our composer, and he just does
he's just a machine with that
job. Yeah, he's so good, and he really every time he comes up with a track, it blows personally me away. So I mean, I know we have a good composer on our side as well with that when that happens.
Yeah, and Keith is one that's he's been part-time for a couple years now, and then he just a couple months ago, or I guess a month and a half ago now, he finally made the leap to full-time with us, and that's just makes such a difference, because he and I are co-designing this, and he's really central to a lot of the strategic side of the game and a lot of the other kind of what we call macro game stuff, whereas I'm more the world building and adventure side of it, and we really balance each other out really well, and he doesn't terribly like doing the interviews or anything, so I take all those and or with Erik, but it's he's kind of the silent partner who makes so much else happen as well. It was I did it on my own for a long time, but doing it with other people is just so much better. It's so much, you're able to accomplish so much more. So
yeah, that's great. Thank you for doing the interview. And I know I definitely like to do it again when the game is released, like have a retrospective or something.
Definitely. We love we love talking.
I guess you've got to say goodbye now.
Yeah. All right, well, take care, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, bye, and thank you so much for having us on.
All right, thank you very much, and goodbye.